All right, we are in Algebra 2. Today's date is Tuesday, February 25th, 2020. Make sure all of your names and dates are on your papers. I'm assuming you're not writing because you already did that? Yes, yes. All right. All right, so some review. What is this point down here? It's a three-letter word that starts with M. Did I even pass out cards? I did not.
Where at?
This point down here. What is that point called?
Starts with an M.
Starts with an M, three-letter word. We'll go with Lorea. It is indeed the min. I guess the full word is 6 letters, minimum. Minimum. I don't know, is that 7 letters? I don't know. But let's call it the minimum. Min. And then the point up here at the very top is called the what, Sam?
Max.
It is indeed the max. Ooh, let's give a harder question. I talked about it briefly in the video that was like over a week ago, right? What are those types of? Those are under the umbrella that is called something. It starts with an E, and then there's an X. Oh, someone knows it. Or might know. Yeah, go for it, Ellery.
Extremes?
Yeah, extremes. I guess it's extrema is the plural form when you're talking about. Yeah, I think it's extremum. I'm not 100% about that. Those are types of extrema. So types of extrema, you have a minimum or you have a maximum. All right, what about this thing? I have this bracket here, this height that goes from that line that we'll define later. But what is this bracket? That is called the care line. It is called the amplitude. Let's all label it. Amplitude. And finally, what is this dotted line called? The dotted line is called, Beverly?
Midline?
The midline. And as Oscar was pointing out in the warm-up, the distance between the y-coordinate of the minimum and the y-coordinate of the maximum, this entire distance is twice of the amplitude, because the amplitude is only half from the midline to the max, or from the midline to the minimum. The other note that I would like to make is that the amplitude is always positive. So write a plus symbol or something. It's always, always going to be positive. There are a few other names for this. Does anyone have a synonym for either the max or minimum? We talked about it last lesson, which again is very long ago now. Someone that has their fictional card, someone I haven't called on yet. No one. All right, Beverly?
One's trough, right?
Yeah, which one is trough? Is that the min or the max?
I think that's the max? No, the min.
It is the min, yeah.
Min.
So another word for minimum is trough. So you might see that on Khan Academy. And does anyone know the other one for max, Anna?
Peak.
It is the peak.
Did you get Cybertruck?
That is now off task. Sorry, you cannot ask that after the lesson. All right, so does everyone have their laptops? Everyone open up your laptops and follow along. We're following these instructions that are in your notes, so if you ever get lost, just come back here. We're going to desmos.com/calculator, which is the graphing calculator. I don't want the scientific calculator. We need to graph this. Y equals a times cosine of bx plus h in parentheses plus k. So I'm going to freeze that up on the screen, zooming in so that people can have it, but it's also in your notes. So that's now frozen. And we're going to Desmos. We are graphing y equals a cosine. It's not arc cosine, it's a times cosine, so I guess I can make it a little bit more clear. Y equals a cosine of bx plus h, all that plus k. All right, so this is what you should theoretically be seeing in Desmos. Not the scientific, so I see a few of you that are on the scientific calculator. Make sure it's just /calculator. In the top, you can't really see it because I have like dark mode on, but this says calculator, not scientific. So if you're not seeing a graph with all this grid paper, then you're not on the right calculator.
Not scientific.
Not scientific. Again, if you just search desmos.com and hit enter, hit start graphing, that big red button in the center, and you'll get here as well. Very top, literally. Start graphing, big red button.
button.
How do you do the dot for the multiplication?
Just do Shift star. Was it Shift 8?
Okay.
Oh, this one right there.
Everyone is there. No questions back here. All right. So everyone has this typed in correctly. Go ahead and click on that blue button that says all. We're going to add all of those sliders. So immediately, right off the bat, we can see this has been graphed now. If I zoom back out, I'm going to click on projector mode here. This is repeating. I think this is by default, it's in radians. Yeah, so if you click on the wrench in the top right, I know that we're not 100% familiar with Desmos graphing calculator, but in the top right, this wrench tool, if I come down, it's in radians by default, and that's fine. What I want to do in terms of our x-axis, so I can see this a little bit clearly, is I'm going to step by pi. So if I want to type in pi, you type in p and then I, and it turns it into pi, and then I'm going to do pi divided by 4. Is that going to work?
Wait,
That'll be fine.
why do you do that?
I want to step by pi so I can clearly see what's happening with the cycles. Since we're in radians, we want to have our x-axis also in radians. So make sure everyone can follow along too. This step, when I click on the wrench, this step, I want to turn that into pi. To type in pi, type p, then I. Not on the y-axis. The y-axis, I don't care. Leave the y-axis blank. The x-axis, just a step by pi. Thank you for helping your neighbors. Leo, Caroline, Chewy, you guys are all good? You're checking with each other? Perfect. All right, so I'm going to get rid of this. Ooh, what does reverse contrast do? Whoa. I could turn off the lights and you could still see. Okay. I want to change h to 0. So let's drag. Oh, before we do that, sorry. Go ahead and click on either of these numbers for a, be -10 or 10, doesn't matter. And it will open up the editing for the variable. I want to step by whole numbers, so I'm going to step by 1. And then you can just leave everything else blank. We don't care about it. For b, you can click on the 10 as well, step by 1. For the next one, step by 1. Next one, step by 1. And notice now that when I drag these sliders, they lock on to whole numbers. So everyone can click on the number, step by 1. And then the first thing that I want us to do after we do that is change h to 0. And let's change k to 0. Step by 1, step by 1, step by 1, step by 1, and change h to 0. All right, please help your neighbors. Check with the left, check with the right. We're all good.
And then now you can like move it.
If you want to start looking ahead, look at the question that I'm asking you in the notes.
Yeah.
I'll probably have to zoom back in, Oscar. All right, looks like everyone is there, as far as I can tell. So our question. So on Desmos, when we type that in, which variable affects the amplitude? And it's simple to say this letter, but how? When I drag it to the right, it does blank. When I drag it to the left, it does blank. So which of these, A, B, H, or K, which of these affect the amplitude? Again, we've already defined amplitude as how far above the midline it is. So which of these variables affects the amplitude? I can try K. Darn, K does not seem to be making it any taller. Let's try H. H, oh, it kind of moves it left and right. Weird. B, what does B do? Oh, whoa. Makes it go in and out. Let's try A, I guess process of elimination. A, there it is. Okay, so clearly the answer is A, but I need someone to explain how. A. Why? Because blah. Or A, and then you say when A gets bigger, something happens. So I want you to write down your own description, and then you're going to check with a person to the left and right of you. When A gets bigger or when A gets smaller, what happens on the graph? And bonus points if you can use some of the words that we've been talking about already, like midline, amplitude, peak, minimum, max, trough, stuff like that. Or extrema, if you want to be super cool. All right. Yeah, Beverly.
When A moves away from 0, the amplitude gets
So moves away from 0 that way or moves away from 0 that way? Okay. So when A, you're changing this to moves away, and I can probably type faster than I can write. When A moves away from 0,
it gets the amplitude gets larger, bigger.
you want to use bigger or larger? Okay. Cool. Does anyone else want to add or edit that statement? All right, yeah, and that's basically what it does. And generally speaking, in Khan Academy, our value never is negative, so we can actually edit that too and just say when A gets bigger, the amplitude gets bigger. Does anyone notice anything specific happening? So I guess I can change our, how can I show this? If I zoom in a little bit. Can anyone point out what's happening in terms of strictly numbers? Look how A is 2. What's happening on the graph? Now A is 3. What's happening on the graph? Now A is 4. What's happening on the graph? What exactly is A controlling? India? Yeah, it's how so?
A is both extreme positive and negative.
Yeah, so let me get rid of this stuff so I can type. A is it's the y coordinate, right?
Yes.
Of the extrema. Yeah, very nice. Oh, what's going on? And you can see that here. Whenever A is 4, the y coordinate is 4. Or I guess sometimes the extrema down here is negative 4. So specifically, A is the amplitude. All right, let's try the next one. Midline. What's going to change the midline? What's going to shift the function to make it go up, make the function go down? Which letter is it? And then how is that affecting it? So at least when I'm playing with it, it looks like K is the thing that shifts it up and down. So the answer is K. You guys now need to write down, or at least think about, how is it affecting it? K. And how is K affecting the midline? Give you guys another 30 seconds to think and write. And then we're going to talk with the neighbor again. All right, so who wants to share? Gloria. K is the x coordinate? What do you mean by that?
Like it changes like how the x coordinate, how far away from the midline it is.
Oh, how far away from that x-axis it is?
Yeah.
Okay. So I can change that to say K is the distance away from the x-axis. Okay, nice. Does anyone else want to add to that or edit that? I heard some other conversations. Ellery?
The amount that increases k is this like same amount of distance the line moves up there.
Okay.
That might not be the right word.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, how would I say that? So you're saying that the distance, can you say it one more time?
If you move k to 2, then the midline is at 2.
So if k is equal to 2, then the midline is 2?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, there it is. So another way of saying this, a more general way of saying what Ellery just said, is the midline equation is y is equal to whatever k is. And we can actually graph that on Desmos too. So I'll leave that up there so you can write it down. That's kind of an important thing to add to your notes. The midline is the equation y equals k. All this analysis, or this, cannot speak, yeah, sure, I'll just go with analysis is great. The main thing that we need to have from this is that the midline equation is y equals k. Let's do that on Desmos. On the next little area underneath your slider for k, type in y equals k. And then move k around, see what happens. All right, so I'm gonna switch back.
Wait, so instead of the other one?
No, so underneath that, so down here, underneath k equals 1, write y is equal to k. And then zoom back out. Check out our new midline. So whenever I drag k up and down, that midline shifts with it. We have now always graphed the midline. Question?
Mine's sideways.
Did you do x equals k?
I did y equals k.
Y equals k and it's sideways. Oh, because you did a capital K here.
Oh, I see.
So just change that also to capital.
Oh, there we go.
All right. So if you haven't been able to tell by now, the idea is you've seen all the graphs of these sine waves and the cosine waves. What I'm going to have you do now is only looking at an equation, only looking at something that looks like this, y equals all this stuff, you should be able to tell me, oh, Mr. Sindel, the amplitude is 3.5. Oh, Mr. Sindel, I know that the extrema happens here and here. Only by looking at this and no more graph. That was the point of today's exercise. So let's go ahead and label all this stuff. This is kind of our nice and neat summary. A, this thing right here, quiet raise hand. Repeat what we basically just said up above. Beverly. Amplitude. Cosine. This cosine, it could have been a sine also, so I'll put a sine up above this. It doesn't matter if it's sine or cosine. It could have been either or. And then K. What did K affect? Someone knew. Someone knew. Brian. Midline. Thank you. In a future lesson, we're going to talk about the rest of our letters, but for now, that's all we have. We only know about A and K. All right, let's try applying a problem that you might see on Khan Academy. What's the midline? Here's your equation. What is your midline? Who has it? With a quiet raised hand. I'm going to pick on someone that I haven't called on before. I think I've called on Caroline. Who have I not called on before? Yeah, we'll go with Jaden. He's making lots of noise over there. He wants to be called on. What's the midline?
4.
Close.
-4.
-4. Done. That's the answer. What about the amplitude? Some number. What's that number where A used to go? It doesn't seem to be one, so what does that mean? What is the amplitude of this function? I'm not going to give it a cold call. I'll give it to India.
1.
1. It is 1. Why?
Because 1 times any k
Exactly, yeah. Another way of thinking about it is there's an invisible 1 right there. So I can write that one in the notes to help us out. Any questions up to this point? We have one more example, then we're done. All right. So this one's a little bit harder. I want you guys to try it out. There's 2 questions. What is the midline? What is the amplitude? Go for it. Good luck. All right, so our midline is going to be what? That is the hardest part. A lot of people are messing up on this and saying it's 1. It's actually not 1. It's something else. With a quiet raised hand, what is our midline? If it's not stated, it's going to be what? Cheyenne, thank you. Say it louder. Good guess. This is actually going to affect the phase shift, which we'll talk about another day. And this is going to affect our period, which again, we'll talk about another day. Don't worry about anything out there. It's this number right here. There's not a 1 there. There's a 0. Yeah. So whenever I'm multiplying by something, I can say 1 times 4.3, or I can say plus 0. Those are always added on. So I guess we can always add on to our notes. We can say sometimes 1. And this can be sometimes 0. So if there isn't any A, assume it's 1. If there isn't any K, assume it's 0. Why are we assuming different numbers? Well, one is being added, one is being multiplied. All right, so we have our midline and our final volunteer, someone new. What is our amplitude? What is our amplitude? Someone new. Yes, Chewy. What is our amplitude?
4.3.
It is indeed 4.3. All right, that concludes today's notes. Please give me a fist of 5. How well can you find the amplitude, midline, maximum, and minimum if I only give you an equation? All right, I'm seeing 5, 4, 4, 3, 5, 3, 4, 3. Sam, what are you at? A 3, a 3, a 4, 5, a 3, 4, 5, and what do you got, Lorraine? 4. All right, perfect. Thank you, guys.